Majin Buu makes his debut by introducing some of the hardest to remove cards in the game. Welcome to Archetype 101. I'm Espira and we'll be breaking down Yellow Majin Buu. We'll be going over what the deck aims to do, an example deck list to get you started, and then some gameplay to see it in action. Without further ado, let's get started. Majin Buu is a yellow leader released in Raging Roar. He's a typical draw type leader that awakens at 4 life. Once awakened, Buu can play out Babidi and Wicked Soul cards from hand for free at the end of the turn. These cards typically being blockers, cantrips, or utility bodies. Just like in Dragon Ball Z, Buu keeps his hard to get rid of nature with the introduction of Barrier. The 3-cost SR Buu prevents any targeting from abilities, rendering him near invulnerable to any interaction from your opponent. Babidi's hold reaches far, and that includes Majin Vegeta. His 4-cost SR is a 25k dual attacker that can also KO a rested 3-drop or lower. As you're deploying these mid-range threats, utilize Babidi's spaceship and your leader's free play ability to keep your opponent's board rested. One of the things you come to realize really quickly when it comes to building a Majin Buu deck is that you actually don't have all that many options in terms of things you want to do with the free play visibility, which kind of makes sense. You're playing things for free, so it needs to be somewhat balanced, but it just ends up being a lot of blockers. So you get a bit of utility in that front. You get Deborah, who ends up being able to rest something if he blocks. You get Pui Pui, which is able to get rid of a field card, which is slowly starting to become more and more relevant, especially with the blue matchups, which aren't fantastic for you as the blue deck. You get Yakon, who's a self-awakener, and then later in the game is an additional blocker. So it's just a lot of blocking. So at that point, it is not like you're getting out threats onto the board, but more so just getting extra value. That said, it is flipped off of its head a little bit when you consider Babidi's spaceship. It's a 2-cost field card that once per turn, when you play a Babidi or a Wicked Soul card, you're able to put it in rest mode and keep something of your opponent that costs 4 or less in rest. Pretty good, especially with all of like the black that's going around. This can really help flip those red and black matchups that can be really tough for you into something that's more playable because you're preventing them from being able to play their mid-range game that they're so good at doing. And you'll notice that the Babidis and the Wicked Souls are all the things that we can free play. So effectively, you can just get this free freeze on your opponent's card every single turn. It is once per turn, something to keep in mind, but when you have that in combination with like something like Son Goku, the 4-drop or something like that, then you're in a good position. If your opponent tries to outsmart you and play around you being able to put his stuff in rest mode, well, then we have Vegeta, where a 2-cost on play, you get to rest one of your opponent's cards, and then you can sequence it in a way where you rest it before you use Babidi's spaceship to keep it in rest mode. A Final Explosion, a pretty mandatory card. In these example matches, you'll actually see that I am running the 2, but after having done these recordings, I would highly recommend boosting that up to 3 probably, just because it's so useful. Being able to get rid of things like SS4 Gokus or any annoying 4-drops can be honestly a pretty good lifesaver in terms of trying to help you keep up in that game. Otherwise, the deck is kind of your standard fair stuff. We've got Bulma, Fantastic Self-Awakener, alongside Vegeta. Vegeta obviously helping us protect ourselves from KO stuff that our opponent might be trying to do in the late game. In the Wicked Soul aspects, we've got Yamu, which is a cantrip. We've got a split of some of the blockers here. I try to prioritize 10Ks for the most part on that front, because oftentimes they will just mostly be combo fodder. On the Babidi front, we've got the 2-cost. He's a cantrip, so you get to play him with your leader ability for free, which allows you to be able to get a free search on the deck for something, which is great. And then we're actually taking in a pair of this 2-drop Babidi, which also has Barrier. So 2 cards in this deck have, in the set currently have Barrier, one of which is Majin Buu, one of which is Babidi. When your opponent's battle card with a cost of 3 attacks, you get to draw 1 card. And turns out there's quite a few utility 3-drops. And some players are going to opt to just have like a board of 3-4 3-drops and opt to not attack you, which I don't think is the right move, because at the end of the day, you're trading in 4 or 5 cards of value for 1 card that you're going to be drawing. But nevertheless, it's something that can help you get into the late game a little bit easier because your opponent can't attack with some of their stuff, right? The 3-drop SR Bardock is a huge card. So if you're also netting a card every time he attacks, makes that a little less fruitful for your black opponent. So that's just something to keep in mind. On the top end, we're running 3 Majin Buus. I had 4 previously, but I landed on 3 just because it's got 0 combo. And it turns out when you're trying to play that early utility game of keeping your opponents in rest mode, trying to awaken, trying to prevent your opponent from awakening, it can be pretty awkward to not have him out. But lots of people are playing Beerus, lots of people are playing blue decks, and Buu can't be targeted by their abilities. So having the ability to have a body that's going to be guaranteed on board all the time is really strong, especially since he's also got the 1 KO'd ability where if he's gonna get KO'd, you can just pitch a card from your hand and he comes back into play. So effectively, did my opponent force me to have to commit more than 1 card worth of combo to keep my Buu around? Okay, I'll just let him die and then bring him back, and otherwise I can just combo out of hand. So at the end of the day, pretty much just a safe thing to have him there all the time. Goku, because it's an incredible card. It's still probably the best, one of the best cards that Yellow has access to. 3 Majin Vegetas, a good card, a good attack, but again, sequencing can be a little bit awkward in terms of like when you can get them out and when you want to do things. A pair of Golden Friezas, this should probably still be 3 maybe, just because of how powerful being able to double strike your opponent out is. And then 1 Golden Frieza just to respect the green matchup. I will say the one card that I don't have here, because I wasn't respecting it enough, and that I would actually say you guys should consider it. Energy absorption, kind of pretty nutty. For 1 cost, you get to choose one of your opponent's cards, switch it to rest mode, you can't switch back. And then if it's a 4 cost or more, SS4, 5-drop Beerus, any number of cards, you get to draw an additional card, effectively making it free. I didn't respect it because I'm like, oh, we have so much freeze in the deck already, but just having a raw ignore whatever your opponent did and just be able to keep it in rest mode actually turns out pretty powerful. So I would find room in the deck to be able to tech some of these, but regardless, this deck is plenty good enough to showcase to you guys exactly what Majin Buu is all about. All right, so here we have our first matchup against Piccolo, which isn't a deck that you see all that often, to be honest. It turns out that when you've got Jiren and Blue and all this other stuff running around, the deck can kind of struggle a little bit, but nevertheless, I do see some people playing it out now, which is fun. I'm all about, you know, people experimenting and stuff like that. So we do have our spaceship, which isn't as powerful of a card. There's a couple of niche cards that we might be able to catch in rest mode. If they play the 4-drop Vegeta, we might be able to get it there. But honestly, I don't think our targets are fantastic here. So that plan is not going to be fantastic. So we're just gonna have to play our good mid-range game here. Buu extremely strong, because no matter what our opponent does, we'll always be able to keep Buu around, no matter how our opponent tries to KO our stuff. That's gonna be another easy charge, because once again, we're not gonna be able to get that more often. But this is one of those places where absorption would be great also, right? Just because, hey, if our opponent plays a 3-drop or a 6-drop or whatever, we'd actually still be able to keep it in rest mode. Now we just have to rely on Goku, which we can definitely still get there. And naturally, if we are able to find Vegeta, that's a card I'm going to be desperately looking for. 3-drop Vegeta. We're going to be able to protect from KO, and that makes Green's life a little bit harder. And by a little bit harder, I mean quite a bit. So I'm here, ended up charging this away as opposed to the final explosion. I guess there's an argument to be made that going into my next turn, if my opponent loads in, or we could just do it now. We're preventing our opponent from ramping. Now that I think about it, that makes a lot of sense, especially since it seems like they used the, we used the energy marker, but now we're keeping them off. Now they need to find a destructive strength or something like that to be able to get ramp off, especially since we're seeing that they're on Piccolo ramp. So having gotten rid of the Kami, we're getting rid of ramp there. Getting rid of a Son Gohan Youth, we got rid of some ramp there as well. So some pretty good value. They still had Day of Training, so it is what it is on that front. But on our end, we're at 6. We have the ability to self-awaken here with the Yakons. So we'll go ahead, swing dig. So this will probably just end up being a Yakon into a Yamu turn, opening up for us to be able to awaken next turn if our opponent swings into us one more. And this matchup is one of those matchups where getting those additional 20k bodies can actually be pretty good for us, just off the back of like their additional pressure that might not be super smooth for our opponent to deal with. So here 15k is just essentially free, especially since we can use the Yamu to protect this Yakon if we want to. So might as well just apply as much pressure as we can. Opponent will go there. We probably will end up just protecting it. Just off the fact that, you know, swing 15 into our opponent, who's been pretty aggressive about defending himself, is going to do us some good. This Piccolo isn't as scary as the other ramp strategies, just because you end up utilizing a lot of combo pieces as opposed to utilizing more like A-drop rollies and stuff like that, but it's still something to keep in mind. Here, no point in using up too many cards on that front, especially since Gohan is now such an easy target. Our opponent is pretty low on cards in hand. Went ahead and got themselves the Special Beam Cannon. Clearly, they're loading up for their 8-drop turn, but we're just going to try and apply too much pressure for much of that to matter. So this is pretty good because this allows us to be able to play out like a Buu instead, which is great, and get a draw as well. Very much welcome. We're going to awaken as well. Love to see that. So there was a point where I was considering like, do I rest Roshi? But I'd rather actually just, you know, make sure to get him out of the game, I guess. There we go. So there's a consideration of which one you do. I guess getting rid of Roshi is one way to be able to do it as well. So protected here, but we're obviously just going to keep on swinging into this Gohan. No reason not to. And even if Gohan lives, that's fine. It's not a big deal. Yamu here, get the swing here. See if we can get another card out of the opponent's hand here. And then we're lining up for a pretty deadly turn. Here we're going to just give an additional 10k for us. Like, all right, super combo, that is fine. And then we're in a position where we can play this Vegeta. We can play another Yakon to just have a blocker. We could also just play this Bobbity to be able to dig deeper into our deck as well. But we're just gonna go with the 15k body because here this is a body that can attack into our opponent, or if our opponent tries to go for some wacky aggro turns and for some reason this doesn't get KO'd, we'll be able to protect it. Bulma's just gonna die. There's no point in sacrificing our Yakon that can go and apply pressure onto the Piccolo, because at this point we just rather have the attacker. I'm not sold on this Goku. I think this Goku should have been able to restand at the end of the turn to really be any decent. I'm really suspect about the usability here. Either way, so we're able to charge that. We're going to swing in. And then here we have the option of being able to go into this Vegeta potentially. So we're going to keep on poking just to see how far we can get. Here we've got this Vegeta to be able to get this in rest mode. Now we don't even have to bother with that. We can actually just swing in the Yakon, get some damage here, swing in with 20k, 20k. We still have 3 energy, which opens up us being able to play another Majin Buu, which is great because, again, if our opponent tries to get rid of it utilizing something like a Broly or a Cell or what have you, they're just not able to do so. So having that body that's going to be sticky and stick around no matter what our opponent does is a big deal. Can't get special beam cannon. Those are the things that we need to consider with, the fact that we're dealing with a color that very much leans on KO abilities to help mitigate board. Well, all right, fine. Then we're just going to go ahead and do our thing and just put out bodies that you can't KO. And then here afterwards, we have the option of going in with the Yamu or the Bobbity to be able to get us some additional draws. We're not looking for anything too crazy here. Yamu allows us to be able to find Frieza's, Goku's as well. So a lot of our going into the late game, we're very much looking for our non-Majin Buu pieces, our Golden Frieza's, our Goku's. So here they get the RAM, so they're now at 40k, but obviously a clean Yamu here protects us from anything too crazy. And then no matter what happens to our board, we'll always be able to have these Boos to lean on. So it was probably just called for a take quickly. So I probably should have super comboed this, knowing that our opponent is probably going to go swinging into us for like a bajillion damage. Here we've got a 30k swing. We'll take, okay, yeah. So my mentality here is that I'm going to defend against the leader swing because I don't want him to get 2 swings. So obviously this is going to cost us quite a few cards out of our hand. But the idea here is I just really do not want to give him the opportunity to get an additional draw with his leader swing. So, especially knowing that we're likely going to go for a high pressure turn to potentially try to close out the game next turn, leaning into things like our Majin Vegeta here. So gonna combo out just a lot of cards, but at the very least enough to be able to prevent this Piccolo from being able to swing again. If I were them, I probably would have comboed away this Bulma, guarantee for some things. And now we're in a position where we can just keep things in rest mode. If we draw into something that's able to double strike, that's really cool as well. But we still have 25k swing, 25k swing. We just got a blocker here that's gonna be chilling. So it's really just about chipping away at what our opponent's options are. We can load up on like double blocker, and then we have 3 blockers, and then our opponent, while special beam cannon will KO a card, are you able to KO 3 cards? So that'll be something here where potentially the play is going Goku, keep the stuff stunned on the board, so that we don't have to face it again, and then double up on blocker. I think that'll be a really nice loadout there to prevent his board from being able to attack into us, and then really just pressuring him to say, hey, you need to find a solution. And it's got to come out of hand, and it got to be able to clear out in 3 blockers. Even if he plays out the androids for double strike between 3 blockers, we'll have 1 up still, which is really good. So while blockers aren't fantastic in Fusion World, there is some value when you have like a bajillion of them. So here we go. We've got 2 Yakons. We got our Pui out. Opponent has a Gohan, as well as their leader here. So there was value in maybe arguing that like we should have gone more aggressively into the Gohan to prevent our opponent from being able to be just this massive body. But we're getting rid of cards out of their hand anyway. So here's the special beam cannon. And what I actually do kind of like with what our opponent does here is that they're actually giving it to the Gohan to kind of split it to make, things look more deadly. So second special beam cannon here, which is like, all right, so it's very spooky now, but now you have 1 card in hand. And like, I'll just take this because your leader swing is the one that's going to swing twice. So I just need to prevent you from being able to deal this 1 damage. All right, and we block, and then depending on what you draw, I mean, yeah, you could potentially go into me, and it looks like our opponent didn't end up drawing anything that will help them out here, which is very unfortunate. And this is kind of where the issue with playing Piccolo is you run so many different combo pieces that your hands end up clunky. So we're very much in a position to be able to lose that one, but luckily it seems like our opponent didn't draw into anything useful here, and thus giving us the win. As we load into this game, I do want to press to you guys that it is so important that if you're looking to get better at this game, go check out your replays. It makes such a difference in terms of like even me just going over these games with you guys as we do, the how to play video. Just like, oh, why did I make that play? Why did I make that play? And obviously I'm learning the decks as I'm showcasing to you how they play out, but it's just something to keep in mind of like, ooh, right? There are ways we could have optimized better for sure. And it is so invaluable to just get that experience. So either way, we're here against Halo Ku. The blue matchup isn't phenomenal, but Spaceship can put a lot of work. They play Vegetos and they play 4-drop Gohans and stuff like that. And a lot of stuff that are really big attackers that I'm pretty keen on trying to make sure that they're only ever able to get 1 or 2 swings on. Obviously, Vegito sucks to keep on board because his permanent's always active. But, if we don't have a final explosion lined up, at the very least, we're going to prevent him from being able to attack. So it does look like our opponent here is doing the Satan City stuff. So he's able to get Sharpener out. To then be able to get the high school out. There's no other swings that could be coming to our Bulma, so we might as well protect her this time. And now we're essentially guaranteed to be able, unless our opponent goes for like a energy marker Vegeta, we're pretty much guaranteed here to be able to get out, to get ourselves self-awakened with a leader swing here. And our opponent gave us a target to swing into. That's not the leader. Obviously, blue wants to be more defensive and slower, so that's fine for them. But now having this set up, this could make things really annoying for them if they end up having to play a slower game where they're playing a more fair game, playing a 3-drop, playing a 4-drop, and then we're like, all right, for free, rest mode it, keep in rest mode. This field card can put in a lot of work in those situations. All right, so Bulma kind of did her job here, helped us self-awaken once again. So now we're going into our 3rd turn awakened, which is great because then we're going to be able to play this out. We'll be able to potentially play out the other 2-drop Obity if we're able to see that early enough. Which then obviously can prevent him from being able to attack with cards like Vegito and stuff like that. And it's like we drew there. So it doesn't have a ton of value against blue because they don't have a ton of 3-drops unless they're playing like the vanilla package. But nevertheless, even just being able to get 2 or 3 cards off of this, especially in a matchup against blue, can make a big difference. So here we go. They're lining up with the Sharpener again. It reveals the Videl. That Videl is not a Satan City. I don't think so. So it does not get the proc. Here, we've been lucky enough to get some free charges here, so we'll go ahead and take those. And now we're leading into 3 energy. We also have a free play. Not any amazing bodies, though. So it might just be, a world where we play this Vegeta, clear off the Sharpener off the board. And honestly, the more Satan Cities that we keep off the board, a better position it is for us explicitly because of how synergistic Satan City cards want to be, right? If they have 3 on board, then they're able to use the short hair card to be able to draw a bunch of cards. So this is a great time. We're digging for some threats. Next turn, we're going to be able to go into Vegeta, but just to be able to find more stuff in our deck that is able to apply pressure. In the late game, we're going to have access to Golden Frieza, which obviously can get Zeno'd away, but at the very least, we'll be able to apply pressure the turn it comes out, and it will be only specifically a Zeno that gets in there. So, all right, so it looks like Vegito clears out our Bulma here, which is fine. She did what she had to do. Gonna combo out of this swing here. And then depending on what our opponent does here, which, all right, if they decide to attack, that's fine with us. We'll go ahead and defend that. And then we're going to be able to get rid of it with this Vegeta here. So now this is where the part of the game gets a little bit sketch with blue, where it's like, how much do you aggro blue to give them a bunch of cards back in hand? They're at 4 cards, which means they'll be able to stay at 7. How susceptible do you make yourself to specifically Gohan? So here we're playing the 4-drop, and what's nice about the 4-drop is that the only way they can get rid of it is Sickle. Not all Halo Kus are playing Sickle. I think that's a bit of a mistake if you ask me, but at the end of the day, some aren't, which means if they're only on Gohan, the only ways that they get rid of this is by reducing the cost either with Mai, or what we actually see most of the time is Hercule. So our opponent only has 4 energy, which doesn't put them in a position to be able to Hercule. We're not going to let them awaken here because no reason to give them that additional dig at this point in time. We're just going to apply the additional pressure next turn, especially since we can go in with another Vegeta after that. And then 2 Vegetas is very much like dangerous Sickle territory, but there's not too much that we can do about that. Here, I opt to not play something with my leader ability because I don't want to give the blue deck more value when it comes to bottom decking my stuff, and I'd rather have the combo in hand. Right, if I play out a 2-drop, it's not amazing, but then it would give his Gohan, if he opted to play into that, 2 targets, and then obviously I just lose combo for no reason. So here's the Videl. It does look like we're playing out some vanilla cards. So here, you know, if we actually still had access to our Bobbity, would have given us a card draw here, which would have been pretty sick. We'll just take the hit. Lately, I've been pretty comfortable in going down to 3 life. It just it just ends up putting you in a position where the awkward combos, you'd rather just have the additional cards for later. And usually you can line up the turns where you force your opponent to have to go in like with their leader and then do double strike because you're able to keep their stuff stunned on board. So you put yourself in a position where you only ever need to concern yourself with 2 attacks that turn, as opposed to 3 or 4, depending on what their board looks like, because you can keep their stuff stunned down or what have you. So here we're just going to dwindle the hand down, get some pressure out. May as well just get some additional draws with Bulma. No reason not to. Get a little bit of replacement there, and it kind of serves double duty, because if he attacks into Bulma, it's almost like Bulma was a 5k combo for us because we like protected whatever else they would have attacked otherwise. So it's almost like Bulma was a free combo or was a blocker if our opponent attacks into Bulma, because it saves ourselves that trouble there. So here, no better time like the present to be able to dish out another Majin Vegeta here. Now they're in a position where they could get rid of 1 of them or 2 of them, but to get rid of 2 of them, it would have to be a sickle, at which point they would only have 2 energy and have no way to play anything else out. And also what's nice here is that we're also able to get rid of the Videl, so we're not dealing with more vanilla shenanigans. And then obviously our hand right now is a smooth triple bibbity. So 3 super combos, and then going into the next turn, we can play a Golden Frieza. And what I really like about Golden Frieza is that even if you get Zeno'd, at the very least, the Zeno goes in rest mode. So you're saving yourself 1 card in hand. In this matchup, Vegeta here, not too fantastic. The best thing it would have been an early game Awakener, but it's still a 20k. So if it ever has to come to that, then that's okay. So opponent's on 5 energy here, potentially good playing into the double strike. Could be playing Vegito. That would try to apply some good pressure here. Yep, so it looks like Secret Rare Vegito it is. Probably bounce a 4-drop back to our hand. And then we'll likely try to clean up our board a little bit. Never mind, just going to attack into us. That's fine. That's what the super combos are there for. So protect ourselves, and then just play out Vegeta and dish out some mixtures. Actually, this is probably a good place for the Golden. And then at the very least, if our opponent Zenos afterwards, we're still in a position where we're going to have another Majin Vegito after that. So still have a super combo in hand, still have a 10k combo, still have 5k. We're not in a phenomenal position, but we're a pretty good one, especially since we're about to get rid of this Vegito as well. We do not need that anymore, so we'll go ahead and use that for our 6th. Obviously, you want our opponents to work with as little information as possible, so we're going to get our attacks through before we reveal what our play is going to be. And, you know, pro tip for you guys, sequencing-wise, always try to balance around giving your opponent as little information to work with as possible. So make your attacks beforehand if it doesn't ruin your other sequencing. So here we'll attack with the Majin Vegeta. Our Bulma survived. Huzzah. So we're actually able to +1 on her now. Get our restand, get another swing in. Gonna be able to get another swing in here. Drain our opponent of cards, and then put him in a position where we're going to attack with Golden Frieza. He's going to be forced to Zeno if he even has it. And at that point, our opponent will only have like 3 cards in hand, no board besides the Zeno, no cards in hand. So even if he clears our board, we're going to be able to Majin Vegeta, attack, potentially, you know, play out another attacker and go from there. This will likely be a take. I mean, our opponent used what I think most of their super combos. So unless they're just emptying their hand completely, it's going to be a take. If we find a double strike Golden, fantastic. If not, we're also just fine because we can play that attrition game just fine. Here, I did end up playing the blocker. Probably shouldn't have, but either way, looks like our opponent didn't wait until their draw to see if they got the Zeno. Maybe they're not running the Zeno, and put us in a position to close. So the blue matchup's really tough, but we have the benefit that if you lean on your 4-drops, it's a little bit harder for them to lean on. And obviously, if we see them, we've got the Majin Buus, and the Majin Buus are actually just going to stick on board the whole time. So the matchup isn't perfect because it's really hard for yellow to be able to deal with some of the beat sticks that blue throws at you. But between being able to keep their stuff in rest mode and having bodies that are sticky or just impossible to get her off the board, you can put yourself in a position to at least make it not so simple for them. Majin Buu leaves a little bit to be desired, I think, in terms of what the deck does. with its bodies. A lot of the blockers are very much just like, oh, this is the blocker that takes life, and this is the blocker that rests mode a thing. And it doesn't feel like there's a ton there in terms of what the deck can do. But I still think in combination with Spaceship and the fact that you get free spaceship value is probably some of the most powerful things the deck can do, as well as the free cycling. The fact that for free, you're able to put a cantrip out on board and draw a card between the Yuma or the Babidis. In combination with the rest of the yellow stuff, I don't know that you're the best Buu deck, but 3-drop Buu is definitely a powerful tool in your arsenal to be able to round out everything that you're doing. So I don't know if it's the best yellow deck, and yellow is definitely kind of in an awkward position, but the additional options alongside the field card I think are very much welcome, whether you're playing Buu or this package in another deck. That said, catch you guys on the next one.